Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found on lifecoachdanamzalike.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 7th episode of season 17, a very special guest and spiritual intuitive guide, Jenna B. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Jenna, the floor is yours.
Hello and good morning. So my name is Jenna B. I was raised by a single narcissistic alcoholic mother with a revolving door of men. And once I really broke away at the age of 19 and found my own freedom to create my own life, I chose happiness. And here I am at the age of 38, living my dream life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. So you mentioned about, if we go back a little bit into the past, we jump into that DeLorean time machine, and then we go back into your younger years. How was it living with a narcissistic alcoholic mother? One time, or how old were you when you left the home, and how did you move on with your life?
I was 19 when I left, and I just had a friend that lived in Arizona, and I was in Washington State at that point. And so I asked if I could hitch a ride to Arizona, and I would figure it out from there. And that's pretty much what I did. But I just knew I had to get away as soon as I could, because if I didn't, I would probably get stuck there longer than I wanted.
So why Arizona? Was it just because your friend was living there already, or was it you just chose that state out of the 50 other states in the country?
Well, I was in Spokane, Washington, which can be very cloudy and rainy and cold and not fun. And Arizona was 85 degrees and sunshine. So I chose the sunshine.
And I would do the same as well. So how was it when you're growing up in this environment? How was it for you? I mean, what kind of like traumatic experiences have you felt, and do you feel still remembering those times?
I think it was a really interesting time for me because it was very lonely. But for some reason, I always felt very fulfilled within. So I know that my relationship with God played a huge role in that. But I think also my intuition played a big role, because my stomach would start to ache before my parents or my mom and her boyfriends would get into fights. And so I kind of internally knew that something bad was going to happen before it did. And I love that now about myself, because I know what that means and I'm able to work with it. But as a child, it was kind of scary to know why my stomach would be in knots before something bad would happen.
So this is how you knew that you had that kind of intuition that helped you create those prayer cards, those positive intuition cards. This is a part of
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it's totally a part of me. And really in 2019, I sat down to like really decide what I wanted to do with my life. And I sat in silence, because I felt like that was the only way I was going to actually hear the answer. And it came from within me, and it was these prayer cards. And I feel very blessed to create them and sell them now.
So what is the concept? I mean, do people like is it like positive affirmation that you put on the glass or on the bathroom or kitchen? How does it work? Is it 365 cards in a year, or does it go in programs? How does that work?
No, so actually there's 8 prayer cards, and they're all based on a certain topic. And the topics are peace, love, positivity, grief, worthiness, strength, and change. And I added a travel one for the kids this summer. But I just wrote a prayer that had more positive words than negative words. I wrote a prayer that is amplifying a greaterness and not the sadness. And then I put a Bible verse at the bottom to correlate with the topic of the prayer.
So okay, so so someone who's dealing with, let's say, a loss of a loved one, and we're putting this into the category of grief. So do they repeat this prayer every single day, the same one, or is there like some variation to it?
It's just one single prayer. I wrote most of my prayers because I felt like sometimes we don't have the words to say what we're really asking for. And so for me, the grief prayer card was very close to my heart. I had a girlfriend's son pass away, and I wanted her to have the words without having to think about it. And so that's why I wrote the grief prayer card.
Oh, I see, I see. So if, let's say, someone, some of our listeners, if they are not, they don't believe in God, or they're atheists, how does that work with the prayer cards? I mean, you have to have some kind of like attachment to a certain religion or to a certain, entity. So does that work for everyone, or is it just for those who are believers?
I wrote, my goal when I wrote them was that it would appeal to anybody just looking in a time of sorrow or hurt, that they could lean on something else other than themselves. So I wrote it for the greaterness of everybody, but because it does say, "Dear God," and there is a Bible verse, I could see how it can be very pegged into one area.
I see. So how did that help you when you wrote those cards, Jenna? Did you read every verse in the Bible to be able to make this intrinsic correlation between all of those 8 points that you mentioned earlier with grief, etc.? How do you what verse do you choose specifically that relates to the existing problem?
Well, that took me a lot of hours, to be honest with you, because I'm such a perfectionist that I wanted it to be so solid and so beautiful and so loving. But it really just took a lot of time of just sitting on my computer and Googling certain topics, and then looking them up in the Bible and really going back and forth. And I would just sit there and ask, is this the one that needs to be on this card? And I would really wait for the answer. And I felt like I always got the correct answer.
So now in your relationship, does your card also provide relationship prayers? I mean, those who are actually looking for their significant other, do they have to just read the prayer card to be able to make this happen, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, I do have a love prayer card, but I honestly think we need to love ourselves before we can love somebody else. So the love prayer card would probably be great for you and your worthiness and realizing how great you are, so that when that person does come to you, you are that present and that treasure for them in their heart.
And when it comes to consulting people or helping people who have gone through similar situation as you did with a narcissistic mother and all, do you help them above and beyond the prayer option, or do you guide them on how to get away from a situation like that, or how does that work above and beyond your prayer cards?
So I'm currently not seeing clients because it became very overwhelming and a very large responsibility, which I am a wife and a mother as well. And I just could not balance all of them for myself personally. But it's a very interesting story because I made it out of where I came from, and I really did work hard and I really did make good decisions. It's hard for me to sometimes coach people that can't do that for themselves, because if you aren't willing to help yourself and make the hard decisions and take the big risks, I really can't help you because I don't know what to do at that point. So I love to guide people, but I also think the work is such a individualistic, internal thing that you need to do for yourself.
I see. So tell us a little bit more about, I mean, your prayer cards are very similar to the laws of attraction, okay? And people thinking about, okay, if I'm thinking positive, we're going to have a positive outcome. If I think negative, we're going to have a negative outcome. So are your cards like smacked right in the middle of those laws of attraction, or how does that work?
You got me. It totally is law of attraction. And that's why I also like praying with a positive outlook, because we're amplifying the positive. We're not amplifying the negative. So I'm always here to amplify the happiness, the love, the fun, the joy, the greatness. Those are what we're here to amplify.
Okay, so what do you think about the many who have tried to go against the laws of attraction? And then, after the movie or the book The Secret with Rhonda Byrne, a lot of people say, well, it's not as easy, especially if you live through a very traumatic life or traumatic experience, to be able to think positive. And so they rebunked that law by saying that, it's not everyone who really truly believe in it, because it's very hard to believe when you think positive, but only what you experience is negative. So what is your point of view on that? Do you feel that despite the troubles that you're going through in life, do you think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel?
I would say at this point, and having been so far out of my childhood, that I wouldn't take it back and I would do it all over again, because it made me the strong, oh, I'm going to cry, the strong, amazing, badass woman that I am today. And if I hadn't experienced that negative contrast, I also wouldn't have known what positive that I want out of life. So I actually have a great love for my hardship, because it gave me what I have now, and I wouldn't change it.
But for the many out there who feel that those laws do not apply to them, and those who actually are seeking happiness, but because of the environment that they live in, it's only negative, it's very toxic. So how would you let someone know, or give an advice to someone to say, get out of this environment like you did when you were 19? But it's not as easy for others as it was for you.
Right. Well, I think that you have to start very small, because I think it can be very overwhelming. And I would say start small with just before you put your feet on the ground every morning. How do you feel about yourself? Do you love yourself? Are you worthy? Are you smart? Are you kind? And really just start within that small little capsule of you doing something different every morning, and just slowly working and seeing how far you can get yourself out of there. But I would always just say start small and be kind to yourself, because it's not always easy.
I see. And are you still in contact with your mom?
We speak every once in a while.
Okay. And has the relationship changed, or is because of what happened in the past, you still feel a lot of resentment?
My husband said to me one time when I really started my healing journey, is you can't hold somebody to an expectation they did not agree to. And once I heard that, I really realized that was my mother and I's relationship, because I had built up this beautiful story in my head about how my mom is loving and supportive and there for me in every moment and all these things, when that really wasn't the case. And so once I was able to really let those expectations go, her and I's relationship has gotten much better, because I love her for who she is and she's not going to change.
So how are you as a mother now, Jenna, compared to how the mistake
Whew.
seen with your mom and how you are with your kids?
Yeah, it's been actually a really beautiful journey to show up for my son like nobody's ever shown up for me before, which I think is also part of my like little childhood trauma that I'm healing along the way. But I'm just showing up for my son in the best way I know how every day. And I think my mom probably did the same, but I have more tools and more knowledge now than she did.
That is so true. Well, I mean, I think because life changed, I mean, the tools that we have in our repertoire are much greater than what our parents had when they were
Oh,
raised.
yeah.
So I think has changed a lot. And plus, now that we have social media, we have Google, we have those directories that help us be able to find more solution to existing problems. I think now it's easier for us to be able to manage, what's going on in our kids' lives. And I think because also the technology has grown to that point, we have to be more careful, because our parents didn't need to worry about what we have to worry with social media. So despite the fact that technology got better, our concerns got greater.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think one of the things that's most important for me in teaching my son is his emotional, like, what are those emotions? And I want him to know if I'm mad or I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm frustrated, and how do we actually deal with those emotions? And then how do we turn it into a positive and move forward in life? And I feel like that was a big lack in our childhood, was we weren't taught how to manage our emotions.
That's so true. And so what kind of tool do you give now? First of all, how old is your son?
He's 8.
He's 8. So what kind of tools do you give him, or how do you interact with him when it comes to explain to him what's going on in life, if he's being bullied at school or mistreated, whatever it is? I mean, is there any tools that you give him to be able to really feel fulfilled, or feel like he has a presence in school or with friends, with family, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Our kind of motto is we're cool, calm, and collected. And if we need to take a step away so that we can recollect ourselves and become calm again, that's what we do. So I just think it's good for us to take a step away, even if it's at school and somebody hurt our feelings. We need to take a step away. We need to take a breath, and then we need to be able to articulate what happened clearly. And so those are very important things that I think he can do at school, at work, in life. I mean, I practice it with my own friends, so I get it. But yeah, cool, calm, and collected is kind of our motto on how we live around here.
So you said that you're really existing in his life, etc. But do you consider yourself as a helicopter parent, or do you really let him make his mistakes?
Ooh. Well, I would love to be a helicopter parent because he's my only child. So I feel that need. But at the same time, I also want my child to fail because the only way he'll learn how to grow and expand is through failure and how we overcome it. So I have to let him fall every once in a while.
Absolutely. There's so much that you can also protect, but also it can come and bite you in the butt in the future if you're too much in his personal space.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yeah. And I really had to learn at a young age how to like move fast and catch on to things. So I'm hoping I give him enough space to be able to learn those for himself.
and when it comes to the way that you are raising your son with your husband, does it have similarity or you guys are polar opposite?
You know what? I'm very lucky. We're both very aligned on what we expect. I am a little bit more stern than he is, but no, we're very aligned, which is a blessing.
Beautiful, excellent. So, for our listeners, because I always want our listeners to get something out of this podcast, what would you recommend to everyone who are going through some traumatic experience, not necessarily from a young age, but even now today? What would you recommend them to start adopting? Kind of like a change of perspective? Is it change of behavior, change of actions? What would you say to let them know, okay, well, today you should start doing this or that?
So I think what I said earlier about not holding expectations to people that haven't agreed to them really for me changed my whole entire life on every relationship that I have. And I think it's really important to really have that perspective. But I also just I think people need to remember to be kind to ourselves because we can be doing things for everybody else and never taking time for ourselves. And I think it's so important that we take time for ourselves and we're kind to ourselves and we say nice things to ourselves. So I really just think if everybody could be more kind to themselves, it might amplify just a little bit bigger in our world.
So you're talking more about self-care.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because like most people, like because in some of my podcasts I deal with parents or kids taking care of their parents or those who are sick or have cancer, whatever it is. And sometimes when they're their sole caregiver, they forget about taking care of themselves, and that creates some sort of resentment towards the person who is sick. And that person is not their fault, but it's how you, whatever you do to be able to make a change. But sometimes it's very hard because that person who is dealing with an illness needs you 24/7. So what time does it give you to really take care of your own health, take care of your own mental, physical health, and everything else that's around it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we actually have to be selfish in some ways. I have to have my alone time, or I am a crazy mom and wife. And so my husband knows to give me my certain time a week that I get to myself. And I think we have to be selfish. And if you're a caretaker for somebody who's ill, that's even more of a reason that you need an hour every 2 days just to go for a walk by yourself and have a moment to process your thoughts. But I think that we truly need to take a moment to be selfish because that's how we also listen to our own bodies to know that we're healthy and we're safe and we're okay.
That's so true. So to conclude this podcast, what would be the few words of wisdom that you'd like to give to our listeners, Jenna?
Oh, I mean, in this world right now, I could say 1,000 things. But again, I think just kindness. I can't say kindness enough. Kindness is free. Enrich others. Why would we not? It's so easy. Hold the door open. Give eye contact. Smile at somebody. You don't know if nobody smiled at them for a week. Like people just need more, and it's so easy to do. Oh, you make me cry.
It was on the purpose there, Jenna. But you're right, and I think
Oh,
what
I know.
people are so self-absorbed, unfortunately, in their own life, and they forget about what's going on around them. And because of this, if someone is frustrated with their own personal life, they will project this frustration to others, while others didn't do anything wrong to be able to create this kind of treatment. So that in itself, it becomes a vicious cycle because that person who received that mistreatment will pay it forward and will mistreat someone else. And then what you said goes on the polar opposite or the opposite direction, and that creates more of an environment that is very toxic, very sad, and very I don't know, just like very like uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah. Even when I get like flipped off driving, I'll like send that person love. I will like so intentionally send that car so much love because I know you didn't flip me off because of me. I know you're just having a bad day.
Exactly, that's correct. And that's what a lot of people have to understand as well when they're employees and all, and when the boss is really angry, they're not necessarily angry at them, but they're angry maybe because something happened to them in the morning, whatever it is, so they just project that anger. But on that note, Jenna, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us, and thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode, and I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 17 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. When you pray with a heart full of positive intention, you send out a powerful message to the universe. Your hopes and dreams are like beacons of light, illuminating the path of your desires. Believe in the magic of your intentions, for they have the potential to manifest into reality. As you pray, envision your goals and aspirations coming to life. Have faith, stay persistent, and trust that the universe is conspiring to bring your dreams to fruition. With positivity and unwavering belief, you hold the key to unlocking the extraordinary in your life through the simple act of prayer. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalak, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.